Okay, just a minute. Anyhow, we'll take a minute. There they are coming. All right, online students, I believe I'm audible, right? Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. So yes. So let's get started. So there are a few things that we will deal with a lot of emphasis on GST reforms that have taken place. All right. So major emphasis will be with respect to the GST reform, but there are few other important things as well. First is the fertilizer crisis. So with respect to the fertilizer crisis, it would probably be very important for your mains because it's related to agriculture. That's one thing. But in addition to that, there are certain fertilizers that we will discuss about. Yes, let's say urea, right? MOP. So what are these MOPs? What do they consist? At least to some extent, the macronutrients you should know. So you can be asked prelims based question also on that. Then next is the Bharti initiative by APEDA, APEDA. So this particular initiative, all the initiatives that come, they become important for prelims, but it also has a mains related attribute to it. So we'll understand why. Then the last two things are related to GST, right? So GST Council, the 56th GST Council, it has approved two rate tax slabs. What are these two rates? 5% and yes, 5% and 18%. These are the two tax slab rates basically. Why these two we are considering? These two consist of the majority goods and services are going to come in this only. So there are now, the GST is now simplified. Only two tax rates are there, 5% and 18%. And the 28%, which is for the sin goods and the luxurious goods, have been increased to 40%. And of course, there are certain things taxed at 0%. So that is what we'll see here. And this, the next again related to the GST only, wherein we will see this new reforms that has come. It is helping whom and probably not helping the other industries. So we will see that. Now, one thing that we had discussed once, I think in the previous class, that the thing is, there will be, let's say, airlines. Airlines will say that probably it's not good for us. Anyhow, the previous structure was also not good for them. It is simply to say that now also there might not be any much improvement in them. But majority of the industry, close to 80% of it, is going to benefit from it. So some of the industries specific example we will take in order to understand what impacts it will have. Okay, so let's start with the fertilizer. So this fertilizer crisis has come into picture. Why are we facing the crisis of fertilizer? There are certain reasons for it. First thing, that India approximately imports around 25 to 30% of fertilizers are imported. Now, since we are importing so high amount, we are already dependent on the globe, on the other countries. That's point number one. Point number two, till recently, a couple of years back, there was El Nino. So the crop production was less, the acreage was less, all those things. Now this year there is better rainfall, higher rainfall. You have increased acreage for the various crops. So the requirement is also. First was imports 25 to 30%. Second is the requirement is high, close to 8 to 10% of increased requirement is there. Then the third is, since we are dependent on the other countries, there are certain issues that are going on with these countries. First is China. We import from China. So we import from China. Now China has put a curb on exporting these fertilizers. Why? Because they also claim that they also have an increased demand and they want to satisfy the domestic demand. One thing can be geopolitical pressure, but the other thing which is also very evident is their own increased demand for fertilizer. So they want to satisfy themselves first before they export elsewhere. The second country that also we take a lot from is, for example, Morocco or any other country for that matter. Now with Morocco, the problem is they make fertilizers with respect to the raw materials that they obtain from countries like Russia and Ukraine. And then Russia and Ukraine's supply chain management is also hampered because of the conflict, etc., that is going on, and the sanctions that are put on Russia, as a result of which the raw materials from these countries, Ukraine and Russia, they generally supply the raw materials required to produce fertilizer. So that is also not there. So China and Morocco, from which we are taking a lot of fertilizers, which constitutes the 25 to 30%, that is also going to decline. Chinese import is also going to decline. Plus, our requirement has gone up. So because of this, plus also that the government is also being criticized for not planning for the future, in the sense that when you have El Nino kind of years, the later on you knew, for example, in inflation, the government knew, the economic survey knew that food prices are going to come down because we will see good rainfall, so good production. So that good rainfall and good production also should coincide with increased demand of fertilizer. Is that clear? So to some extent you can criticize that, but not completely, because there are a lot of other factors that are also playing an important role. If only the increased rainfall and the increased sowing, which is leading to increase in demand, would have been the reason, we could have addressed this demand by increasing the import on the fertilizer. But that has been clubbed with the fact that there are curbs from the other countries and non-availability of imports to India, which is probably leading to the fertilizer crisis, right? So fertilizer crisis, the pointers are here: rainfall increase, sowing increase, demand for fertilizer has basically increased. Now, how much is this increase? You don't have to remember the exact percentage, but what is this SW monsoon? Southwest monsoon, right? Southwest monsoon. Now, southwest monsoon, there is an addition of 8.9%. So close to 10% over the normal monsoon is what we are having, because of which there is higher sowing of paddy, that is rice, pulses, coarse cereals, maize, etc. are being increasing in acreage. Example of rice is given here. You have 420 lakh hectares of rice as compared to the 390 hectares previously. So 30 lakh hectares of increase, that is around 8% of increase in acreage in rice. So if you are increasing the acreage, what is going to happen is the resource requirement will increase. So there is a direct increase in the resource requirement. Okay. Now this graph, what is the significance of this graph is, we do have a vision of increasing rate of fertilizers, wherein India has taken from 2024 to 2033, we are seeing an average growth rate of 4%. Compounded average annual growth rate of 4% is there. But this year, the requirement has gone up by a higher amount. 8%, 9%, it's simply the increase in the demand plus shortages elsewhere. So we did plan. So again, countering to the fact that people saying that India had not planned, to some extent planning was there. This is to showcase the plan or the vision of India, how much increase will be required. But to some extent, there is an abnormal increase. Abnormal increase as in, you can say increase is 8%, but shortage from other country is making us lead into the... Clear? Yes. Any questions? Yes. Now these are the individual increases. Now individual increase is not that important. What is important is to see certain fertilizers have increased. There is one which has gone down. That is important. Okay. So what is important here? That if you look at urea, urea consists of what as macronutrient? Nitrogen. So urea has nitrogen macronutrient. You should know that. Urea's demand has increased. This is lactans. Then this is what? DAP. What is DAP? Diammonium phosphate. So what will this consist of? nitrogen plus phosphorus, both of them. Ammonia is NH3 and phosphorus is also there. Then you have NPKs, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and some amount of other micronutrients, including sulfur, will also be there. Its demand has also increased. Like this, these demand have increased, but this is, what is MOP? Muriate of potash. Muriate of potash. Muriate of potash. Potash means potassium, right? Again, the symbol will be K. So muriate of potassium's demand has gone down by 43%. So if you are asked the fertilizer demand of which of the following fertilizers have increased, remember, don't write simply all of it has increased. Muriate of potassium's demand has gone down is what you should know. Now, why is that the case? That is the case because muriate of potash is basically going to give you good amount of potash, but there are other substitutes which offer more than one macronutrient, as a result of which the demand for this is going down. That is the only reason. The increase in their demand is because of increase of acreages, but the decrease in this demand is being compensated with respect to increase here because they are better suited. They provide more value for money than muriate of potash. Is that clear? Okay, all right, friends. Let's move ahead. So India's import dependence, I've already mentioned, around 25 to 30% of fertilizers we import. The key suppliers are China and Morocco. China has basically curbed its exports. Morocco is not getting the raw materials to manufacture fertilizer, as a result of which from Morocco also we are not able to get the fertilizer. So our options are limited here. Okay? So global disruptions because of Chinese export curbs and Morocco's supply limitations. Morocco's supply chain limitations. It's not getting the resources from Russia as well as Ukraine, as a result of which not able to produce enough, as a result of which we are not able to get it from there. Is that clear? Yes. Next, so the reason of shortage also we have seen the domestic production lag. So 30% anyhow dependence was there because we are producing less, we require more, and the disruption that we already saw. What is the ground reality of it? The prices will go up. If you talk about the ground reality, there are big queues. People are not getting the fertilizers, and this is time sensitive also. It is time sensitive in nature. You cannot wait for a month and get later on then do the cropping. Of course not. It is time sensitive, and because the amount of fertilizer is less, demand remaining the same, in fact increasing, there is a demand supply mismatch. So in fertilizers you will see increased prices. So you will see a tendency of inflation or skewflation in the basket of goods and services of the farmers, basically because of increased price of fertilizer. So fertilizer prices will increase. When their prices increase, the cost of production will increase, right? The cost of production will increase, which will make it even more difficult for the small and marginal farmers. Okay. Now, along with that, a lot of people who has pre-stocked it is also going for black marketing of the fertilizer. Okay. Some people, even if they are ready to buy at a slightly higher price, the fertilizer itself is not there. So black marketing is also happening on the ground, is what various reports are. Okay. This is the fertilizer situation in India. It will lead to higher cost for them, stress during the sowing season. It will affect the crop. If they are not producing it, it will affect their income. They will not be getting the income. It can also cause other social issues. Suicide rate of farmers is also important here. Inflation risk will be there. Even on food, it will not be limited to fertilizer. Fertilizer prices are high. Input cost will be high. Production cost will increase. So food price can also increase. That's one thing. Second, because of lack of fertilizer, if the productivity is less, again that can lead to inflation in the food prices. So what will increase? Core inflation or headline inflation? Headline inflation will increase. Core inflation does not include food and power. Is that clear? Okay. So please remember this. Also, already a huge amount of fiscal burden is there on the government. So anyway, import, even if you import, the import itself will become costly. Why? Because now big players are out of exporting. China is not exporting. Morocco is not able to export. So others will also give you at a higher price. So the government, what they can do now is just ensure that they are able to provide the farmers price has become a second thing altogether. But when the price is also high, the poor and marginal farmers will not be able to gain it. That is when the government will have to provide more subsidy. But the subsidy burden is also already worth 2 lakh crore. So it will be again a burden on the taxpayers. Okay. So this is the entire problem of the fertilizer. Is that clear? Any question anyone has with respect to fertilizer? Any question? No questions? Please remember what are the different types of fertilizer, what constituent elements does it have. Okay. The highest amount that is used is urea. You can clearly see the number. It is almost double than the next highest one. Urea has historically been used in India because highest subsidy was on urea. Urea was the cheapest. So farmer used to apply a huge amount of urea. That has what made our proportion of fertilizer very unequal, uneven in favor of urea. The percentage of urea, ratio of urea is very high in the Indian farming. Okay. Next is the Bharti initiative. The Bharti initiative, Bharat's Hub for Agri-Tech Resilience, Advancement and Incubation for Export Enablement. Okay. So this government is quite famous for acronyms, short forms and long forms. But the interesting point is, if you just remember the entire name, you can understand what this particular initiative is going to do. Okay. So Hub for Agri-Tech, that means they are talking about advancement in agriculture. Then resilience, comma, advancement and incubation for export enablement. What is incubation? Have you heard this incubation word previously? Where? Okay, good, that's correct. Startup incubation. So incubation is basically you keep child in incubator for the growth. The eggs are kept in incubator to fertilize. So that is where the things are in embryonic stage to actually give life to it. Similar concept is used in the startups. So when Startup India, Stand Up India scheme was there, the government of India was providing incubation for the new startups. Right? In incubation process, what happens is there are a lot of government incubators in Bengaluru also. Right? So in that, these startups, they register themselves. The ones who are selected can come here. It is like a small office space will be provided. It is going to be a huge space wherein different spaces will be provided to different startup founders. They can come there, they can work there, they can have their meeting, hiring, everything. They get certain benefits and facilities which the government provides to them under different schemes. By doing that, new ideas will be generated, new startups will come. So that particular thing is being done in the agriculture domain, wherein agricultural incubators will be created. But the emphasis here is one thing, that is export. So we want our agricultural exports to increase and become close to, I think, 30 billion. Talking about 50 billion. Up to $50 billion worth of exports we have to make by 2030. That is the idea. Now, why is this initiative being taken? This initiative is being taken because what we simply do is, whatever crops are being grown, yield is being generated in its very raw form, we simply export that. See, whatever is this was the situation of Bihar with respect to makhana is the situation of India with respect to the rest of the world. Bihar used to produce a lot of makhana, but without processing it, without packaging or doing anything, adding value onto it, export it to other states. The other states are going to add value into it and earn the money on it. Now, India is doing the same thing. We simply keep on exporting various things in its raw form. We are not exporting as such packaged food, processed food, all those things. We are rather importing those packaged and processed food, and we are just simply exporting the raw materials. That is why it is very much important for us to add value onto our agricultural produce, which will increase our export. So even if we have, presently around 20 billion worth of exports are also there, if we keep on adding value, we don't have to suddenly double our production. What we have to increase is the value addition. What we have to do is, processing it. We need to process those things, add value onto it and export the same. So your export growth by volume might not be much, but by value, it will be huge if you can do that. So based on the concept is of export enablement. So any startup which is going to work in that domain, with respect to agricultural products, those startups are going to be provided with the incubation facility. The incubation facility also consists of training, skilling, hand holding, advising. There will be benefits of credit facilities. All those things will be provided by the government of India. That is what this initiative. Now you have understood the initiative. Any conceptual based prelims question you should be able to solve, but there will be certain facts also. What are the facts? Facts you should be very clear with. It will empower 100 agri-food startups. So how many agri-food startups will get incubation? Basically, it wants to empower 100 agri-food startups through innovation and incubation. Okay. And this initiative is going to support APIDA's target of 50 billion worth of exports by 2030. These are the two numbers that you should remember. It is also easy to remember as well. Now, when you're talking about processing the food, when you're talking about bringing technology in this sector, there are certain things that you will address. So when you process, what do? You address the issue of perishability. No? For example, processed milk, which comes in the cartoons. So they are processed at very high temperatures, which gives them higher time or shelf life. So you address the issue of perishability. You improve the quality. Quality is very much important when you want to export, because if you export low quality, the other countries may not accept it. The domestic users drinks, eats whatever low or cheap quality you provide to them. We are also adapted to that, right? If there are not enough microorganisms in that, we will not be able to digest it. That is how we are adapted to it. The others are not adapted to it, so we have to maintain the quality. Why? Because there is a concept of non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers means people, there are two ways to restrict trade. One is to impose high amount of tariff so that your exports will not come much in my country. The other way is non-tariff barrier. Non-tariff barrier means I am not imposing any tariff, but I am not receiving or accepting your exports, simply by saying it's not of the quality or the standards that I hold in my country. So if the quality is not good enough, I can simply reject your exports and safeguard my own industry. That is why maintaining quality is very, very much important. Okay. And logistics sustainability, fair enough. Okay. What are the key focus areas? Focus on high value agricultural products. As I mentioned, it's not the aim to increase the volume, the value has to increase. So GI tags, organic food, superfood, processed foods, etc. What are superfoods? Yes, very high density of nutrition. For example, we will not be exporting protein bars as such, but protein bar is like a superfood, very highly densely with respect to the protein or other micronutrients. They are superfood. So very small space they take, and then they can be exported. Even your dry fruits are very like superfoods only, right? So earlier in the battles, when people know that they have to remain in the battle for a couple of months, they will not take food grains and all with them. They will take with them dry fruits. A handful of dry fruit is going to give you calories and protein and everything worth enough for 2, 3, 4 plates of rice and curry. So that is what superfoods are there. And processed food. So we need to start processing. We need to export superfoods. We need to give organic tags, GI tags. So GI tags makes anything famous, makes anything unique with respect to the region where they are grown. So publicity. Organic, so devoid of any chemical interference, and people's income are increasing. The foreign people are also very aware of their lifestyle. They would also want organic products. Okay. So these things are the things that we will focus on for increasing our exports. Here, you don't see much of increasing the production as such. Of course, production should also increase. It will definitely increase at its natural pace itself, and productivity can also be increased. But remember, the main focus is on value addition. Okay. Then livestock products and Ayush products. What are Ayush products? The Ayurvedic products that are there. Ayush products are the Ayurvedic products. So there are certain Ayurvedic supplements as well. Ayurvedic supplements, plant-based supplements for protein, all those products are going to be promoted by the government. Is it clear? This is the symbol of GI tag. GI tag is given by which ministry? Who gives? I think we have it in the question. We will discuss the questions as well. Okay. Promote tech adoption, AI, blockchain, IoT is Internet of Things, agricultural fintech. What is agri fintech? Financial technology, digital payment, digitization of loan, credit, everything through online, you should be able to get the loan. Now the farmers and all, they reach out to the banks, branches to take the loan physically present, whereas I can right now take a loan by the click of a button on my ICICI app. That is digital technology. So those kind of interventions will be provided in this for these areas, right? And the problems that will be solved, we have already discussed: perishability, sustainability, logistics, quality, packaging, etc. Export ready solutions for global markets. It will provide export ready. See, packaging also plays a very important role. If you buy a biscuit that is cheap, you buy a biscuit that is costly. The biscuit that is costly will have another packet inside the packet, right? It will be in a tray, all those things. It plays an important role. It justifies it is an experience that is actually given to you to charge you more. Okay? These are all strategies. Now next, APIDA, right? So APIDA is under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Important. Any body which comes in news, it is important to know what it is, under what ministry it is, and is it a statutory body or not. All those things are important. So APIDA is a statutory body under the APIDA Act. Its mandate is to promote and develop exports of agricultural products. So it works in the field of agriculture, but with respect to the exports. With respect to provides marketing, transportation, value addition support. Okay? Clear? No. Year of it, no. You just remember that it is a statutory body under the APIDA Act, right? What you can remember is like the chronology. If I ask you, arrange the following in the order of their establishment, and I give you regional rural banks, APIDA, NABARD, should be able to arrange. Sometimes the chronology can be difficult. Like for example, I gave you NABARD plus APIDA. So that is quite close with each other. Regional rural bank and APIDA is not. So we are yet to do banking, right? That is why you don't know actually. But in banking, you will logically actually understand why, right? So a regional rural bank were formed, then this was formed. So you should just be able to arrange them in chronology. Exact year is as such not important. Okay? Okay. Next, and if exact year, if they ask also, that will be a problem for majority of the students. It will be a very factual question. You can provide benefit only to so many people, right? If Legacy IAS Academy says that we will provide mentorship free of cost to 10 poor people, of course the other poor people will be left out. Ha. Ha. Yes, but some point of time you will have to start. We may take, instead of 5 years, we may take 6 years, but there needs to be a starting point. UPSC is also difficult, but we did start, right? So yes, of course, see, his point is, if we are taking only 100 startups, other startups will be left out, of course. But we have to see what happens with the 100 startups. If it works well, maybe we expand it to another 100, 200 startups. That's point number one. Point number two is, it may be difficult. Yes, it will be difficult. So we want up to $50 billion. We might not achieve it, but you actually have some targets. Setting target is very important. If you don't set target, you will basically be underachieving by a huge amount. Think of it as you are running a 400-meter race alone. When you run alone, your timing will be worse as compared to when someone else who is very good at running is running with you. Because then what happens? That person acts as a benchmark and a target which you want to achieve, right? So this is, of course, that particular thing is possible in anything, that you start with this in particular a scheme, only these many people will get benefits of in online gaming. So that argument not necessarily holds good. That's point number one. But there is a counter argument also. What is the counter argument? The Kuznets curve. So maybe the optimum point of inflection for online gambling might be at a higher percentage. So there is a possibility that in 40% you might see the change. So what I'm talking about is this. So we are talking about basically this Kuznets curve. This Kuznets curve, right? This Kuznets curve. This Kuznets curve is what? This is what rate of taxation on this axis, and this is the tax collection, right? Now initially with the increase in the rate of tax, the tax collection keeps on increasing up to a certain point of inflection, wherein with further increase in taxation, the tax collection keeps on going down, right? This is the general understanding. Now that does not mean that every product, every kind of tax will have the same point of optimization. Is that clear? So for service tax, it might be 30%, right? For certain other tax, it might be lesser, it might be higher. So for online goods, what we have seen, its tax slab increase, but its rate of tax collection also increased, and people still kept on playing it. It might so happen at a higher rate, it might show inflection in it. Is that clear? So maybe there can come a point, but not necessarily, because we have anyhow have things like alcohol which have close to 100%, but still the demand keeps on increasing. Because also, you know, cigarettes are there. Cigarettes, so at least it is here, but alcohol is at a higher rate. People become habitual to it, and the online games are also habit forming. So since they are habit forming, wherein your nervous system itself is habitual of this, it might be very difficult to curb it by increasing the taxes. What might actually happen is, people, instead of earlier selling their cars and all to play this game, might end up selling their entire house and assets. So it can lead to more social issues as well, because these are habit forming in nature. When these games advertisement comes, Dream 11 and stuff, they say this game is habit forming in nature, so please play sensibly. Is that clear? So that is why the taxation impact might not be enough to curb that. What you can do is better proper regulation, 100% digitization, etc. is what you can see. Chalo, now let's come back to this. So this was this has been unveiled. It will be implemented from 22nd of September. Okay. So in this, the focus, chalo, we'll see each thing effectively together. Yes, please. It is way beyond taxation of sin good. It is 100% taxed. It is 2.5 times the sin good. Is that clear? Government is not putting that under sin good, because if government puts it, they have to reduce the taxation on alcohol. Is that clear? In the same manner, if they put petrol in GST, they will have to reduce the taxation on petrol, right? That's a very good question that we should ask to the government, right? Anyway, okay. So this is what, 2 slabs, 5% for the essentials, 18% for the standard, 40% for the this is the demerit rate for luxury and sin goods, tobacco, pan masala, online gaming, etc. Right? Next, where the things have seen some relief, there is 0% GST on life insurance, life health insurance policies, 0% GST on UHT milk. This is basically, what is this UHT milk? This is the milk that is processed at very high temperatures for packaging. Processing is done at a this is high temperature, ultra high temperature milk. So that is what is there. Generally, these things are done so that the milk lasts for a longer duration. So milk, paneer, Indian bread, etc. all they will be. Very important is what? When you go to restaurant, right? You have taxes, CGST, IGST. Now also you will be there. Please remember, on what thing GST is 0. What they do is they impart entire tax for all the things that you are eating. Next time you go, so you can check with respect to that. Okay. Next, 33 life-saving drugs, from 12% they have gone to nil. 3 critical cancer rare disease drugs from 5% to nil. Okay. Now, what do you think? Has the government done an amazing thing? The government has done course correction. We have already paid a huge price for this for the last 8 years. This is another perspective to look at, right? Having 12% taxation on 33 life-saving drugs, not a nice thing to do. We have paid for 8 years. The government is probably, from one perspective, if you look at it, it's a course correction, right? So it was not an amazing thing. It's a good thing that has happened, but it should have been the very basic minimum requirement for us to happen. The Indian breads, nil GST should have already been there. The things that, especially the vegetarians will use paneer for protein, all these things, these basic essential things. Now we are saying the essential things are at 5%. They were essential 8 years ago also, but they were taxed at 12 and 18%. This should have already been happened, right? So probably a course correction, but nevertheless, it is a relief. Okay, let's move ahead. Yes, consumer goods with respect to cars, TVs, ACs, cement, auto, etc. now from 28% to 18%. In two-wheelers also, what has happened is the bikes that are less than 350 cc's are now taxed at 12%, and the ones higher than that is still remaining in 28%. Okay? Renewable energy devices gone down to 5%. It is of course going to boost the energy, it is going to boost the production. Now the government is estimated to lose around 48,000 crore rupees because of this shuffling. However, it can be compensated with the boost in demand, which will boost the production. So production would be higher. So the quantum may even out and still grow in the coming years. So there are two sides of it. One estimation is 48,000 loss in the GST collection in the year starting from 22nd of September. But then in the longer term, the demand will be boosted, the production will be boosted. So the collection will also be boosted, the employment will also be boosted. So a lot of positive will still be there. Okay. Agriculture and rural support. Farm machineries, tractors, harvesters, composters, they were taxed at 12%. They have gone down. These important things you should remember. You can expect a question in prelims with respect to that, right? Next, fertilizers, they have gone down from 18 to 5%, right? Imagine small and poor marginal farmer paying 18% tax on fertilizer. Now it has been reduced. Handicraft, marble, leather goods, etc. from 12 to 5. Okay. This is an interesting thing. Of course, see, this is going to have, in GST also you have input tax credit, you want for refund, all those filing. Now, if you file for it, it has been rejected, then what is the remedy? So you will be having the goods and services tax appellate tribunal, which will be operational from 25th December 2025. Means in the coming months, it will be operational. So if you file for a refund and the refund is rejected, or it is delayed, or it is lesser than what you have filed for, so you can take it up with the GSTAT, that is GST appellate file. Okay? So that is a very basic thing that was required. Yes. Next. Now this topic is with respect to GST, but different industries. So first things first, GST is having, see, mixed industry response this article talks about, but majority of the industry is happy. Is only a few industries which are still going to have certain concerns. Now here, let's say for example the airlines. So in airlines, what has happened is previously the economy and the business class are there, both were taxed at 12%. Now the business class is taxed at 18% and the economy class has been reduced. You're happy? Will now fly home, right? So economy class has been cheaper. But see, all this is well said and done. But the question is, will the airlines transfer the benefit to the people or not? That is an important, right? So flight tickets are anyhow at an all-time high. So if I have to go, no, even if I book 3 months before, 2 months before, it still costs me 6,000 to go to Nagpur. Now, of course, it has GST. Now, I may get to know that even after 22nd September, it is costing me the same. Why? You lower the GST, but the prices you have anyhow increased. So transferring that benefit to the public is very important, right? That has to be monitored. So in your answers, when you are mentioning, yes, it's a good thing, but now the monitoring in order to ensure that the benefits are transferred to the citizens should be the way forward. Okay, that is a big. Majorly digital payments are there, so it is. But no, it's not about also digital payments. Yes, you can keep a check on that. You can keep a check on that. But then, justification and all is there. Na? For example, if I still keep my rate the same, you as a government will tell me that why you have not transferred the benefit. I will tell you, I have. It's just that my rates have anyhow gone up. So if this benefit was not be there, I would have charged them even more. So then again, there is a tussle, right? So of course, an independent audit and independent thing can take place, but still it is very difficult to actually see that. Okay. No, no, no. All that business is gone. All that business, I do understand it is dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing also, it's business because when you are parking the plane, the highest cost that goes for a plane is the time that it is there on the airport. Either it is parked or using the runway, that is a very big cost. So that is correct. But even in then, if you look at a couple of years before prices, if you would book a ticket, because it's also dynamic in nature, dynamic as in all these prices are involved. In addition to this, what is the demand? And in that also, it was a very shrewd pricing in the sense that if you are searching for a same flight 10 times, it will show a higher rate, a different rate to you and a different rate to me, right? And what has happened earlier was if you are booking it previously, so the demand for it is not much, you would get cheaper. Now you can open the app and check for the flight to Nagpur or to Mumbai, to anyone. You will see that the price for 2 months later flight and 10 days later flight is also the same. It's very close to each other now. Okay, so that is definitely there. And of course, it depends on that. The business also, the frequency of the flight. Mumbai to Bangalore would be quite cheaper as compared to Bangalore to some other place equivalent distance because the flights are empty also. So less number of people are also there. So all these parameters definitely play an impact. Okay. Yes. So this was the first thing. What is that? Airlines. So this, remember this airlines one. Okay. Next you have the textile industry. So in the textile industry, what is the criticism here? 18% GST on garments that are costing more than 2,500. So if you now, if you have an attire, you are wearing a jacket or something which is costing more than 2,500, GST will be 18%. Now see, I think this is a good approach. This is a good, now we can argue with respect to the rate, but at least the approach is good, right? The approach is good because previously what was the case? Same GST on the attire irrespective of the cost of it, right? So generally the rich people and more affluent people are going to buy costlier attires, whereas the others are going to buy cheaper. So if you are buying cheaper attires, you are being taxed less. So that is trying to put a progressive taxation characteristics in a indirect tax. So that is a really good thing. In banking chapter, we discuss about priority sector lending, wherein we talk about priority sector lending is there, but then the big pharma still keep on taking the loans. So there can be priority within the priority sector. I think we discussed that people who are having small land holdings should be given more preference even within the priority sector, right? So here, this is the way to give progressive nature to a regressive taxation, that up to 2,500, your GST is lesser, 18% if the garments are costlier than 2,500. So this approach is good. The number can be contested. No, it should be 3,000, 5,000 or 2,000. That is a different thing. But the approach is quite good. Yes. Previous this one. 12%. Right. So now 12%, 5%. So now there is a higher tax on this because that 5% garments lesser than 2,500 government is considering to be essential. That is essential. Cheaper food, clothing, shelter, garments essential, but this is standard. Basically, you are going for, let's say, more of a costlier thing, so it is greater than 2,500. Now one question here is, when you talk about attire, so when you are, how is that going to be calculated? It's not going to club up all the attire. You have a shirt, you have a trouser, you are not going to club it. Each individual garment is what we are talking about. Okay, individual garment is what we are talking about. Yes, so one thing that can be done is, you have shalwar, kurta and dupatta. Now what can be a move around is, shalwar is separate, dupatta is separate and kurta is separate. Each attire is within 2,500. Yes, the prices are generally like that only, right? So that they play with your psyche and you think, oh, no, it's not 2,500. Then I'll ask how much? It's just 2,499. Okay? Huh. Yes, this is also that only. That's correct. This is also progressive, because I have never flied business class, right? So poor person is being taxed less now, and rich people are being taxed more. So it is also giving progressive nature. This is a very good approach. Now you can argue with respect to the costing, what is the limit, but the approach is definitely good. Very rarely do I say that. Okay, next. Yes, the cars, entry and mid cars up to 14 lakh or less. So basically, the cars were basically under 28%. Now they have been reduced from 28%. Okay. Then high end cars means 1200 cc and above. So in cars, they have with respect to less than 14 lakhs and then more than 1200. In bikes, it is 350 cc, less or more than 350 cc. Okay. Next, the healthcare sector. GST cuts off 12%. From 12% to 5% on medtech products, diagnostic kits. You are buying any BP machine or let's say sugar checking machine, all those things, their taxation has reduced. Lower treatment costs, better affordability, access, all these things important. So these things are important. You have to remember this. See, a very high possibility that none of this is asked. That is also possible, but please be ready for it. Okay. Next, renewable energy sector has also seen a cut in the taxes from 12% majorly to 5%. It is going to boost the renewable energy. India is doing quite well in it. More than half of our energy is coming from non-fossil fuel sources. Okay. Life-saving drugs. See, life-saving drugs that saves your life. Yes, yes. See, life-saving drugs are, yes. What is that example? She's talking about life-saving drugs. So I'll tell you about epinephrine or all those things. Life-saving drugs is, we discuss one concept. I'll give an example. We discuss a concept of multi-drug resistant bacteria, right? So there are different lines of drugs for the infections that are caused. All they do is they mimic the infection that is there in the body. So the last line of defense mechanism with respect to the infection are all life-saving drugs, right? Because that is the life-saving drugs. Beyond that, no, you have other drugs also. So the final line of defense that is there for the antimicrobial resistance, multi-drug resistance, will become your life-saving drugs. And one more thing you saw here, one thing was, from 12% it has been reduced to 5%, the rare diseases, the drugs which are with respect to rare diseases. So rare disease is another challenge. What is the challenge? In rare diseases, what happens? There are very small number of people that are suffering from that disease. Since the number is very small, the industry does not want to do research and development in that domain, right? So what happens is, these particular medicines becomes exponentially costly. You will get injections worth lakhs and lakhs of rupees. So in that also, you have, for example, I think sickle cell. Sickle cell is a rare disease which happens to very handful few people. So do you think industry will be interested in doing research and development and provide and manufacture that? Because very less people ask, so the prices are exorbitantly high. That is rare diseases. Renewable energy cut we have seen. Yes, these are the questions. Let's solve the questions, please. And if you have any doubts, please ask me. I will read it out also. Okay? Yes. You can't see it. With reference to fertilizer demand and supply in India, consider the following. Despite higher kharif sowing in 25, muriate of potash consumption increased due to India's heavy dependence on imports from Russia. Very good. If you get this false, you get the answer only. Right? Second, urea sales in April, July 2025 registered more than 20% growth. Yes. India continues to import nearly 1/3 of its total. Nearly 1/3. Yes. Nearly 1/3 is yes. Okay. Anyhow, the first statement is factually incorrect. So the correct answer here is 2 and 3. You can see, right? With reference to the Bharti initiative, consider the following statements. It seeks to promote GI tagged organic livestock and Ayush products as high value agri-food exports. It includes a 3-month acceleration program to prepare startups for global safety and quality standards. Initiative is implemented solely by APIDIA without partnership with state boards, IITs, NITs or industry accelerator. Huh? Yes, बताइए. I think we have not added one fact over here. So it includes a 3-month acceleration program to prepare startups for global food safety and quality. During that incubation, they will be provided a 3-month acceleration program. Ji? Ha. They will be provided that. Okay. You can add that. You will anyhow get this PDF. You know that the statement is correct. That is under the incubation that is provided. So when incubation is provided, you do get the development of skills, hand holding by the experts in the industries that will be provided by the government. Next, with reference to GST 2.0, consider the following. 56 GST Council merged 4 GST slabs into 2 slabs plus a demerit rate aiming to simplify compliance. Next, fertilizer inputs such as sulfuric acid and ammonia were exempted entirely from GST to reduce input cost. No, not the case. 2 is false. So 1 and 3. GST appellate tribunal is expected to be operational by December 25 to address the dispute. See, because we just did it and solving the question, it looks easy. It becomes really confusing when the same things will be asked in test series. So the approach should be do a micro topic. Any questions are there, solve it. Do a chapter, solve the question. Do a chapter, solve the question. If you do that, everything else will be good. So like this, you can have the approach. With reference to industry reaction to GST 2.0, consider the following. Textile industry opposed the 18% GST on garments priced above. Yes, this is subjective. They may not ask this, but yes. Auto manufacturers welcome the removal of GST compensation cess. Compensation cess has been removed. I added this, I think, because it was not there in the presentation. The compensation cess has been removed. Okay. So, second is correct. First is correct. Next, healthcare and renewable energy industries criticized. No, it's wrong. Third is incorrect. Okay. Third is incorrect. See, some of the question now, these are kind of subjective question. I have deliberately added it is because to try to guess, maybe they ask this kind of questions, right? So this question was out of the ordinary. Generally, you don't see in UPSC this kind of question that what has been criticized, this, that. These kind of questions and analysis you see in the mains. But you never know when GST asks that probably what was the intention or the mood of this sector or this sector. Why am I trying to guess it like this? Actually, in your management examinations, you have these kind of questions which are approach based. Sometimes they may have multiple answers correct. So you have to select the answers, and based on what answers you have selected, you will get different grades of marking system. Is that clear? So you have been given a problem. This is the problem. What is the solution? So I select option B. I may get 5 marks. You select option C. You may get 10 marks because C was better than B. So that kind of an approach was added in this question. Okay, but your major things would be dealing with these kind of questions that are there. All right, any doubts? Yes. The startups are going to have to fill the forms and kind of a pitch deck. What is a pitch deck? For example, pitch deck is generally prepared when you want investors to invest. So you have to tell them what is your vision, what are the problems that you're solving, in what domain you're working. Then the government is going to, it's not a draw system, the government is going to actually evaluate all those proposals, and based on those evaluation, 100 will be selected, right? Yes, it is like that. But purchasing managers index is a completely different. The government will decide. No, presently they have not formed a body. There's no independent body that they have. Probably APIDA itself might have an internal body to decide. Yes. No, it is not a venture capitalist concept. The government is not going to invest in it. The startup will remain your only. You will not be, government will not be holding shares of your company. No. Okay. You can have my money in it invested, the founder's money here invested. That is your lookout. Government will help you, give you the place, give you the training, expertise, and then you have to do things on it. Yes. Upper middle class. Okay, yeah, that is there. Yes, you can say that. Correct. Because see, because another issue happens. That is a very fair point. Let's take the example of this. See, the thing is, being a middle class, you are trying to come to an upper middle class, and in a year you are maybe flying 2-3 times. One fine day you have an aspiration that I also want to try business class, but for me anyhow it's more costly now, right? So that is the thing. See, in a manner that when you are saying that GST on cake was increased, so what do you mean to say that poor people cannot celebrate using cake? They can, but now you have made their celebration also costly, right? Of course, you can say generally more affluent people celebrate it, but of course, there are aspirations of the poor people. Now, those aspirations are even farther for them. So, you can mention that point. But generally, those points are value added points. Those kind of points in your essays would gel very well, because there you will have a lot of words to explain, right? In short answers, you have to find a way to put across that. So, but that's a good point. So, if you are mentioning that point, write a proper small sentence in which you can explain that, right? So you prepare that point to mention it in your answer. Okay. Okay. Anything else, guys? Yes. 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. These 4 tax slabs were merged into 2 plus 1 demerit tax. 5, 18, and 40. No. It is merged now. When you are merging, then you do not exist individually. 5. So presently they are merged into 5, 18, and 40. Now, is that clear? Okay. No, in the long run, see, the counter is the same, which is the counter for the government of India is also, the government of India is accepting that the taxes will be lost. But in the long run, what has happened? Demand will increase now. So you will have higher volume of sales. When higher volumes of sales will be there, your tax collection in the long run is going to increase. The impact will not be very sudden. Why not sudden? Because even though the demand increases immediately after 22nd of September, the production will be lagging, right? So from the second, third year onwards, you will be seeing the increased growth. So if you compare what is the vision of the government CAGR, compounded annual growth rate right now, if it is X%, in the coming years, it will be more than X%. So the losses in the taxes in the long run will be countered by the increased demand, which will lead to increased production. Hence, the volume increases. So the tax collection quantum is going to increase. Is that clear? So first year, that may not happen as such, because even though the demand is increasing, production is not able to keep pace. But from the second, third year onwards, you are going to see the impact. Okay? Clear? Anything else? Thank you, guys. No.